He fired me in front of 500 people in a ballroom filled with champagne, string quartets, and billion-dollar egos, just so he could look powerful. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just smiled, shook his hand, and planned to destroy him. My name's Jordan. I'm 34, and up until a few months ago, I was the director of operations at a luxury event tech startup based in Miami. My life was built on order, spreadsheets, Gantt charts, launch schedules, vendor contracts. I loved structure. It made sense. I made sure our platform ran smoothly for some of the richest people on the planet while they threw galas, charity auctions, and influencer-packed, fundraising events with six-figure catering bills. It wasn't glamorous, more like high-stakes backstage management, but I was damn good at it. People called me the fixer because I handled what no one else could. If a senator's mic glitched or a CEO's teleprompter froze mid-speech, I'd already be 3 steps ahead. That night, the night everything unraveled, was the Halo Lux Children's Charity Gala. Black tie, beachfront, $1, 200, 8 plate. I'd spent 3 months coordinating every detail. The guest list had over 500 people, tech elites, influencers, politicians, and sharks in sequin gowns. It was peak South Florida absurdity and stress, but I was proud of the event. It was the kind of night that could land us 3 new enterprise clients. I was triple-checking the AV feed backstage when Nathan, our CEO, texted, "Come to the main floor. I want to acknowledge you." He never said things like that. Ever. Nathan wasn't a give credit kind of guy. He was the kind of man who'd take over your pitch mid-slide and say, "We'll fix it later." But tonight, maybe, just maybe, he was finally giving me my moment. I straightened my jacket, checked my reflection in a champagne bucket, and walked out to join him. He was standing at the podium, stage lit and beaming like a game show host. "Let's give it up for our brilliant team tonight," he said, voice syrupy. The crowd clapped. My stomach fluttered. Then he said it. And a special shout out to Jordan Reyes, who, after years of dedication, will be moving on to new opportunities after tonight. We wish him the best. I froze. There was a beat of confused silence, followed by polite applause. Someone near the front murmured, "Oh no, did he quit?" Another whispered, "Wait, he's being fired." I stood there, plastered in polite shock, trying to smile as 500 pairs of eyes turned toward me. My palms started sweating. My knees felt electric. I clapped along with the rest of them, nodding like it was all fine. Nathan looked directly at me and winked. He ing winked. I felt like I was sinking through the polished marble floor. But I walked up anyway, because what else do you do when you've just been publicly executed in a tuxedo? I shook his hand, cameras flashing. "Thank you for everything," he said, all false warmth. "Of course," I replied, keeping my voice even. "You'll be hearing from me soon." I don't think he caught the tone. Or maybe he just didn't care. Back at the bar, the reality hit me in waves. This was his power move. The gala, the crowd, the cameras, it wasn't just a firing. It was theater, a statement. He wanted the world to see him as decisive, bold, ruthless. I was just the prop. I sat down on a stool, took off my tie, and stared at the ice cubes in my drink. I'd built that company's back end from scratch. I'd stayed up for 36-hour crunches before product demos. I'd saved their ass when our cloud server bill almost tanked us. And I got a curtain call firing in front of 500 people. The string quartet was still playing. The waiters were passing foie gras. Nathan was on the dance floor, laughing with 2 investors. And I was sitting alone, swirling bourbon and trying not to explode. People avoided me. Most of them didn't know what to say. A few came over awkwardly to say, "You'll land on your feet," like I'd just been dumped at prom. Then I felt a presence next to me. A woman in a deep navy dress, calm eyes, mid-40s. "That was unprofessional," she said. I gave her a half laugh. "That's one word for it. You're Jordan, right?" She asked. "Operations." I nodded. "Clara DuPont," she said, extending her hand. "Aurora Venue." I blinked. I knew the name. She ran one of our biggest competitors. Smaller than us, but smarter. Leaner. More respected. "He made a mistake tonight," she said. "And I don't just mean the speech." She sipped her wine and looked straight ahead. "If you're free Monday, I'd like to talk. No pressure. Just coffee." Then she left. No pitch. No promises. Just that. I sat there for a while, watching Nathan toast champagne with some influencer whose name I didn't know. as if he'd just locked down $1 million deal. I'd always thought revenge was a messy word, immature, self-defeating, but sitting there, stripped of my dignity and ignored by the very people I helped prop up, I realized something. Revenge isn't about rage. It's about restoration. And sometimes, it starts with coffee. I didn't sleep that night. After the gala, I went back to my condo, still in my tuxedo, shoes in one hand, bourbon buzz long gone. I walked straight to the balcony and sat there until sunrise, listening to the waves crash while Miami's skyline slowly turned from gold to gray. My inbox was already full. A few "Are you okay?" texts. Some industry people messaging vague condolences. One intern even wrote, "Sorry you're leaving. Can I still list you as a reference?" That one made me laugh, bitterly. I didn't respond to any of them. I just kept replaying Nathan's voice in my head, moving on to new opportunities. That smug grin. The way he played it like a PR moment, like I'd just won a Lifetime Achievement Award instead of losing my career. The worst part? I hadn't seen it coming. We disagreed, sure, over strategy, product decisions, hiring freezes. But that was normal. Or at least, I thought it was. He'd never threatened my job, never written me up, never even hinted I was on thin ice. Hell, the last thing he told me before the gala was, "Let's put on a hell of a show tonight." Yeah, well, mission accomplished. A few weeks earlier, we'd sat across from each other in his office, glass walls overlooking downtown, arguing about a hiring decision. He wanted to bring in a VP of strategy, someone from his old college network, no ops background, just pedigree and swagger. I told him it was a bad call. "You're great at logistics," he'd said, "but strategy's not your lane." That stung, but I let it go. I've let a lot go over the years. Like the time he took my market expansion model and presented it as his own on a call with our Series B investors. Or when he told a board member I'd overcomplicated the client workflow when I'd actually redesigned it to stop a 6-figure leak. I kept brushing it off, telling myself it wasn't personal, telling myself I was too valuable to cut, that he needed me. Turns out, he didn't. Or maybe he did, and that was the problem. There's a moment that keeps coming back to me. 3 months before the gala, I was leading a quarterly review. We were killing it. Retention up 18%, churn way down, onboarding speed slashed by half. I was walking through the numbers when Nathan suddenly stood up, interrupted, and took over the presentation. Didn't even acknowledge the data I'd pulled, just spun his own version of the story. I remember looking at him as he talked over me and realizing he looked tense, not confident, threatened. It didn't fully click then, but looking back, I think that's when it started. I wasn't just the guy keeping the machine running anymore. I was becoming the guy people listened to. Clients asked for me by name. Investors requested I join calls. Junior staff sought me out before going to him. I think he hated that. And so he clipped my wings. Not in a closed-door meeting. Not with a heads-up or a soft exit. No, he needed a spectacle. A public cutting down. To remind everyone whose name was on the front of the building. It worked, at least in the moment. He looked strong, confident, in control. But the thing about playing God in public? People notice when your lightning strikes the wrong person. On Monday morning, I put on a plain white shirt, grabbed my laptop, and walked into Aurora Venue's office. It was a far cry from Halo Lux's tech bro minimalism. No neon signs, no espresso robots, just quiet rooms, real plants, and people who actually smiled when they passed you. Clara greeted me with black coffee and a simple, "Ready to get to work?" No corporate onboarding, no hype video, just trust and an open slate. I wasn't technically an employee, not yet, just a consultant. But the first thing she said in the meeting was, "I don't want you to be who you were at Halo Lux. I want you to be smarter than that version." That hit deep. The first week, I mostly observed how their ops ran, where they bottlenecked, where Halo Lux had always had the edge, and where it didn't. Turns out, Clara ran a tighter ship than Nathan ever did. Leaner too, and more honest. But there was one area they desperately needed help with: enterprise client acquisition. The same territory I used to dominate. I asked Clara, "What's your biggest blocker?" She replied, "Legacy loyalty. People assume we can't scale." I grinned. Then let's give them a reason to question that. That night, I opened an old spreadsheet I'd built at Halo Lux. Top clients, their renewal dates, vendor preferences, exec decision makers. And I stared at one name for a long, long time. Vermilion Properties International. Our biggest client. 7-figure contracts. Deep integration. Renewal in 92 days. I personally handled their last 2 onboarding cycles. They trusted me. And if I could win them over to Aurora, Nathan's empire would start bleeding from the heart. I shut the laptop, took a deep breath, and leaned back in my chair. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about precision. About knowing exactly where to place the knife and how deep to twist. I wasn't expecting to see her again so soon. Clara DuPont, the woman in the navy dress with the calmest eyes I've ever seen, like someone who's watched a dozen storms but never flinched. She had approached me at my lowest moment, dropped her name like a poker chip, and walked away before I could even ask why. But 3 days after the gala, she called. Not text, not email, an actual call. Hey Jordan, just checking in. I hope you've had some time to breathe. I know how disorienting that kind of betrayal can feel. Her voice was low and even, but not cold. More like a doctor explaining a diagnosis she's seen 1,000 times. I didn't know how to respond. I'm breathing, I said honestly. She laughed, just a short exhale. Good. Let me buy you lunch. There's a place near Brickell. You'll like it. And just like that, we had a table for 2 at a restaurant with linen napkins and very quiet music. She didn't waste time. You know I run Aurora. We're not Halo Lux's size. Not yet. But we're faster, leaner, and a hell of a lot more trusted. She stirred her iced tea. I hadn't even ordered yet. I've been watching Halo Lux for 2 years. Nathan's ego is your greatest asset, if you're smart. She said it plainly, like we were discussing the weather. You don't know me? I said. Not yet, but I've done my homework. You're not a flashy guy, but people in this industry talk. Quiet power. Unflappable under fire. Frankly, I think that's why he got rid of you. I didn't respond. Because she was right. And hearing it out loud made it real. You didn't just keep that company running, she continued. You made it run well. And I think you're the reason it hasn't imploded yet. The server arrived. We ordered. She kept talking, measured but intentional. You want revenge? I didn't answer. You want dignity back. That's different. That's earned. That struck something in me. She leaned forward. I'm not asking you to burn bridges. I'm asking if you want to build something better. Something that makes his empire look like a cheap rental hall with string lights and an inflated pitch deck. I actually laughed. And I hadn't laughed in days. Let's start with a consulting role, she said. Short term. Quiet. You help me sharpen my ops. We get our systems airtight. Then, we go after the big fish. And Nathan? I asked. She smiled. He'll beat himself. You just need to hold the mirror up. Over the next week, I stepped into Aurora's operation like I was sliding into a second skin. Their people were sharp but overworked. Their process had heart but no spine. The potential was there, it just needed structure. Vision. Foresight. All the things I used to bring to Halo Lux. I didn't change everything overnight. I didn't want to leave fingerprints. This had to be subtle. Quiet. But I noticed something else too. Clara didn't micromanage. She didn't interrupt. When she asked questions, they were surgical, not performative. She was the opposite of Nathan in every meaningful way. And she had one rule. Don't give me half-truths. If something's broken, I want to know before it shatters. God, I hadn't realized how much I missed that kind of honesty. Still, something in me stayed guarded. I'd just been humiliated by someone I trusted for 5 years. Thrown under a gilded bus for show. Now here I was, working for his competitor, helping her sharpen the knife I'd spent a career learning how to wield. I kept asking myself, am I just trading one shark for another? One night, I stayed late to run a simulation on how we could absorb 50% of Halo Lux's vendor network if we timed a soft launch during their Q3 churn cycle. Nerdy stuff, but dangerous if it worked. Clara walked past my desk, paused, then said, "You're playing this close to the chest. That's fine. I would too. Just know I don't need loyalty right now. I need results. Loyalty comes after." That honesty, that got to me more than any pitch. 2 weeks in, she called me into her office. "I want to show you something." She slid a folder across her desk. Inside, Vermilion Properties International. The crown jewel. Halo Lux's white whale. They're multi-country enterprise client. We're going after them, she said. They won't even take your pitch, I replied. They're embedded deep. They like you, Jordan. She looked at me, direct, steady. You want your dignity back? Win them. Not for revenge. For proof. For power. For yourself. That night, I opened my old drive and pulled out everything I remembered about Vermilion. Who made decisions? Their weak spots. The little things no CRM would ever capture. Like how their VP of events hated QR code check-ins. Or how their CFO would only approve contracts on Thursdays before noon. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was precise. People think revenge is about fire, rage, destruction, but they're wrong. Revenge is about memory. It's about remembering exactly where the cracks are, so you know exactly where to press. To be continued. It didn't feel like revenge at first. It felt like relief. The kind of quiet relief you only recognize after months, maybe years, of subtle suffocation. Like taking off a weighted vest you didn't realize you were wearing. Aurora didn't feel like a rebound. It felt like oxygen. Still, I didn't say yes right away. When Clara offered to bring me on full-time, I paused. Not because I didn't trust her, not exactly, but because I didn't trust myself. I was still untangling 5 years of loyalty from 5 seconds of public humiliation. What's stopping you? She asked. We were in her office, no laptops open, just her and me and a legal offer sitting between us like a lit match. I don't want to build something just to make it fall again, I said. Then don't build for them, she replied. Build for you. The next morning, I signed the contract. Chief Strategy Consultant. 6-month term, with an option to convert. Full creative autonomy. She didn't ask me to go after Halo Lux. She didn't have to. I knew exactly where to start. First, information. I still had the blueprint in my head. Halo Lux's backend wasn't built to scale, no matter how Nathan spun it on stage. They had over-engineered the product and underfunded support. Their client success team was stretched too thin, their automation triggers were broken, and their documentation was a joke. But more than that, they were arrogant. They thought the clients wouldn't leave. That reputation and polish would be enough to mask dysfunction. And that's where they underestimated me. Clara gave me a war room. Literally. An unused office, whiteboards covering every wall, filled with colored sticky notes and printed screenshots of everything I could remember or recreate. Onboarding workflows, CRM patterns, API integrations. I mapped it all out. Aurora's strengths, Halo Lux's weaknesses, timing windows, budget cycles, contract renewal cliffs, and dead center, written in red Sharpie. Vermilion, the big fish. Halo Lux had built their entire enterprise credibility on that one client. Losing them wouldn't just hurt, it would bleed. And I knew exactly when they'd be vulnerable, 74 days from now. On a Tuesday, 2 hours after their Q4 pre-planning review, I reached out to one of their ops managers, someone I trained personally back in the day. Nothing pushy, just, hey, hope you're well. Would love to catch up. She replied in 10 minutes. We met for coffee. Neutral ground. I didn't even mention Aurora at first, we just talked. Burnout, vendor frustrations, delayed support responses. I let her vent. Only after a full hour did I say, you know, there's a better way to do this. A cleaner system, smarter onboarding. You deserve more than duct tape and chaos. She leaned in. You're not with them anymore, are you? I smiled. No, I'm somewhere quieter, more focused. Send me what you're working on. That was all I needed. By the end of the week, I had her team on a trial demo of Aurora's system, rebranded and anonymized. No logos, no hints, just product. Clean, fast, thoughtful. They loved it. And just like that, a tiny fracture formed in Halo Lux's foundation. That weekend, I went for a long walk alone. No phone, no music, just my footsteps echoing through the sidewalks of Coral Gables. I thought about how quickly things had shifted. 1 minute, I was standing under a crystal chandelier, while a man I once trusted gutted me with a smile. Now I was rewriting the narrative, line by line, from the shadows. And it wasn't just about Nathan anymore. It was about every voice in the back of my head that ever said, play it safe, be polite, wait your turn. Screw that. My turn was now. The following Monday, Clara walked into the war room, coffee in hand, and stared at the wall of strategy. She didn't say anything for a long time, just took it all in. Then she turned to me and said, "You're not just trying to beat him, are you?" "No," I said. "I'm going to erase him." She smirked. "Then let's give the industry something to talk about." That night, I sent one final message. Not to a client, not to a friend, to a quiet contact inside Halo Lux. An engineer, someone who owed me a favor. "Hey, friendly heads up. Looks like Aurora's growing faster than expected. Hope you're doing okay over there." He replied 2 minutes later. "Dude, things are falling apart." Revenge isn't loud. That's what people always get wrong. They picture it as this explosive moment. Tables flipped, bridges burned, exits dramatic. But the kind that really matters? The kind that changes lives? It's silent, it's slow, and it starts with a single whisper in the right ear. After that message from my old Halo Lux contact, "Dude, things are falling apart," I knew the cracks were real. They weren't just emotional. They were structural. The product team had burned through 2 key engineers. One quit for a crypto startup. The other left after being blamed for a platform outage that was, ironically, Nathan's fault. I trained both of them. They knew I didn't burn bridges. So I reached out, not as a recruiter, not as a friend begging favors, but as a strategist with options. I invited them for lunch, one at a time, off the radar. Just casual catch-ups. But I was vetting, measuring loyalty, feeling for leverage. And I offered something Halo Lux couldn't. Respect. Not hype. Not perks. Just a team that listened and a system that worked. By the end of the second week, one of them, Eli, was working under a short-term NDA contract at Aurora. Quietly. No LinkedIn update. No chatter. Just raw code behind a blank laptop screen in a side office. He didn't ask questions. He just said, "I've been waiting for that company to collapse since the day Nathan gave me a Starbucks gift card instead of a raise." Meanwhile, I kept pushing gently on the Vermilion front. They were slow to move, like any large enterprise, but the signs were there. Their event ops team forwarded me questions almost daily. "Does Aurora handle simultaneous live translation? Can you show us how check-ins work for 5,000 plus attendees? What's your SLA on tech failure?" We answered every question with precision. Never aggressive, never sleazy, just better. I made a point not to mention Halo Lux even once. Let them draw the comparison. And they did. At the 60-day mark, I got a message from Vermilion's VP of Global Events. "Would you be open to a private demo next week?" No commitment, just exploring options. That message felt like a loaded pistol sliding across a table. But while one hand was offering solutions, the other was still twisting the knife. Halo Lux's Q2 product launch was coming up. I knew exactly how those cycles worked. Nathan loved to tie all announcements to PR stunts, and their infrastructure never scaled properly under stress. So I dropped a tip, quietly, through a chain of plausible deniability, to a venue partner I knew still worked with them. Something like, "Make sure they're load tested for this one. Last update had issues under concurrent logins." It wasn't technically a lie, just a reminder of reality. The kind of reminder that triggers anxiety in middle management. The kind that forces last-minute system checks, which then delay internal testing, which causes a cascade of friction behind the scenes. By launch week, I heard the platform glitched live in front of 2 investors and a celebrity host. Temporary outage. Event delayed. Twitter noticed. The damage wasn't fatal, but it left a bruise. And in a business where optics are everything, bruises turn into headlines. At Aurora, Clara was starting to see the shift. "You've been quiet lately," she said one morning, looking at the metrics board. "But I can feel it happening." "That's the point," I replied. "This isn't a knife fight. It's pressure applied over time." She smiled. "He'll never see it coming." "He doesn't have to," I said. "He'll just wake up one morning and realize everyone left." The hardest part wasn't execution. It was restraint. I wanted to call Nathan. I wanted to look him in the eye and say, "You should have shaken my hand in private, not staged a performance like I was disposable." But I didn't, because that would have made it about ego. And this was never about ego. This was about restoration, about earning back the pieces of myself he tried to break off with applause and a smirk. By the end of the month, 3 of Halo Lux's top vendors had requested meetings with Aurora. One former client quietly reactivated an old conversation with our sales team. Eli had rebuilt our onboarding API to outperform Halo Lux's by 20%. And Vermilion? They sent over their contract. Not a request, not a demo follow-up, a contract. I stared at it for 10 minutes before I told Clara. "This changes everything," she said. And it did, not just for Aurora, but for me. Because in that moment, I realized something. Nathan hadn't just fired me. He had freed me. There are moments in life where time slows down, not because you're afraid, but because you're finally in control. The day Vermilion signed with us was one of those moments. I remember it in fragments. The soft hum of the HVAC above, the faint scratch of Clara's pen on a yellow legal pad, the coffee on my desk gone cold because I forgot it was there. Then the alert popped up in my inbox. DocuSign completed. Subject: Aurora Venue plus Vermilion Properties, Master Agreement. It was done. The biggest client in Halo Lux's portfolio, the one Nathan used to brag about on panels, the account they built investor decks around, was officially ours. And just like that, the crown jewel of his empire belonged to me. I didn't cheer. I didn't fist pump. I just stared at the screen, breathing in the silence like it was fresh air after years underground. Clara walked in a few minutes later. I didn't even have to say anything. She saw my face and smiled, small and sharp, the kind of smile a surgeon gives when a long procedure goes exactly right. "Congratulations," she said softly. "You didn't just take a client. You took his spine." She wasn't wrong. Vermilion was more than revenue. They were prestige, a symbol. Their logo lived on Halo Lux's homepage, pitch decks, investor updates. Hell, I'm pretty sure Nathan had their name printed on a fake award plaque in his office. And now they were gone. With one signature, I had rewritten the story. I kept expecting a message, a call, some angry reaction from Nathan. But there was nothing, just silence. And silence, from someone like him, that's worse than yelling. Because it means you're scrambling behind closed doors. It means you're too busy bleeding to scream. The fallout started 3 days later. A VC firm that had backed Halo Lux's last round pulled their follow-on commitment. Quietly, no press. But I heard through a contact that they'd started diversifying in adjacent sectors. Translation: they saw the writing on the wall. A week after that, I got a text from a former marketing lead at Halo Lux. We hadn't talked in over a year. "Hey, not sure what you're working on these days, but I think we need to talk." By then, it wasn't even revenge. It was gravity. Clients, talent, investors. They weren't choosing sides. They were just following momentum, and all of it was swinging in my direction. Still, part of me wanted closure. So I checked the Halo Lux website. And there it was, Vermilion's logo, still sitting proudly under our partners. Outdated, delusional. It felt sad almost, like watching someone keep a wedding photo up months after the divorce. 2 weeks later, I was invited to speak at an industry roundtable. Small venue, private, but the kind of place where real players talk off record. I didn't know Nathan would be there, but he was, sitting across from me at the U-shaped table, pretending not to see me. His hair shorter, his suit louder, his confidence cracked at the edges. I spoke about scaling infrastructure, strategic timing, why companies fail when they prioritize hype over foundation. What clients want isn't magic, I said into the mic. They want something that doesn't break when 10,000 people log in at once. I didn't look at him when I said it. I didn't have to. Afterward, as people mingled near the espresso bar, he approached me, slowly, like someone walking toward a moving train. "Congrats," he said flatly. I raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "Don't play dumb," he said, glancing around. "You got them. You got Vermilion." I didn't respond, just waited. He leaned in slightly. "Enjoy it while it lasts. You'll never be me." That was the moment I realized how far he'd fallen. He still thought I wanted to be him. "Nathan," I said quietly, "I've spent the last 2 months undoing every part of you I used to tolerate. Trust me, I have zero desire to repeat the mistake. I walked away, didn't look back. That night, I stayed late at the Aurora office. Everyone else had gone home. The war room was quiet. The Vermilion contract was filed. Our next 3 clients were already in demo. I stood in front of the whiteboard and crossed out a name. Halo Lux, Q3 dependency target. It was done. They weren't a threat anymore. And Nathan? He was just another casualty of his own arrogance. There's a quote I wrote on the corner of that whiteboard, something I read years ago but never understood until now. Some victories are so complete, even the winners feel a little sorry. I didn't feel sorry, but I finally felt free. It didn't start with headlines. It started with whispers, tiny tremors, barely noticeable, unless you knew where to look. An event manager at a major hotel chain reached out. We're having issues with Halo Lux's new updates. The platform keeps freezing mid-registration. Then an anonymous post popped up on an industry Slack I still had quiet access to. Is anyone else getting ghosted by their Halo Lux account rep? Sent 3 emails, no reply. Small things. On their own, easy to write off. But I lived inside the machine. I knew the pattern. When a company starts to fall apart, the first sign isn't mass layoffs or dramatic statements. It's silence. Departments stop talking. Clients stop getting answers. Support tickets pile up. Morale sinks like lead. And in Nathan's world, where everything was curated for optics, silence was fatal. 3 weeks after we landed Vermilion, another former Halo Lux engineer texted me out of the blue. Bro, Nathan just fired the entire QA team. Said we were bloated. The new patch hasn't even been regression tested. That's when I knew things were breaking. Really breaking. I wasn't surprised. Nathan never understood infrastructure. He understood presentation, performance, theater. But you can't spin your way out of broken code. Not when your biggest client left. Not when your investors are ghosting. Not when your competitors are quietly offering better support, cleaner UX, and faster turnaround. Meanwhile, at Aurora, we were moving like wolves. 3 new enterprise demos locked. 1 silent bid placed on a co-hosted venue contract Nathan had always bragged about owning. Our engineering team, led now by Eli, released a patch in 6 days that Halo Lux had failed to ship in 4 weeks. Clara and I kept our heads down. No gloating, no press, just pressure. But the outside world was starting to notice. TechRadar published a soft piece titled Changing Tides in Event Tech, Who's Really Winning Enterprise Loyalty. They didn't name us or Nathan directly, but they didn't have to. The message was clear. Someone was rising. Someone else was falling. Then came the LinkedIn exodus. One by one, I saw profiles update. Former Halo Lux marketing manager, open to opportunities. Former lead dev at Halo Lux, seeking new challenges. Dozens of them. The lifeboats had launched. The iceberg was quiet, but it had hit. I stayed up late the night those updates rolled in, reading every single one. Not because I was gloating, because I was remembering. Remembering the nights I'd stayed up debugging Nathan's half-baked roadmap. The weekends I'd given up. The birthdays I'd missed. The respect I'd earned, until it was taken from me like a prop in a stage play. And now? Now I wasn't watching a company collapse. I was watching a kingdom fall, brick by brick, not with fire, but with erosion. The slow, perfect rot of bad leadership exposed to truth. 2 days later, I ran into one of Nathan's former execs at a conference. She looked tired. Her smile was forced. "We always knew you were the brains," she said, glass of wine in hand. "We just didn't think you'd come back swinging like this." "I'm not swinging," I said. "I'm just standing." Finally, she nodded. "Well, the board's asking questions. Loud ones." That night, Clara and I went over the latest analytics. Demo to close time was down 42%. Churn rate projected to hit a historic low. Aurora's name was being whispered in circles where, 6 months ago, we were invisible. I looked at her and asked, "What do we do when he's gone?" She thought about it, then shrugged. "We build something better, without needing a villain this time." And yet, a part of me wasn't done. Not out of hate, not out of vengeance, but because justice doesn't stop at balance. It stops at accountability. And Nathan still had one last performance left to give. He just didn't know the curtains were already halfway down. I didn't expect the headline to hit on a Monday, but there it was, front page of Tech Signal, time-stamped 8:17 a.m. Enterprise favorite Halo Lux facing mass exodus amid platform failures and executive turmoil. I read it 3 times before the shock wore off. It wasn't just a rumor. It was an autopsy in real time. They had sources, quotes from ex-employees, anonymous leaks, even a screenshot from Slack where someone on the support team wrote, "We're literally duct taping the system every day. QA's gone. No roadmap. No leadership." My phone started buzzing. Clara sent a single text. "It's starting." Inside the article, they named names. Nathan, of course. Founder CEO under pressure. 2 board members, rumored to be evaluating leadership restructuring. And a whole section about Vermilion's departure and how it triggered a wave of client doubts. I didn't give them that story, but someone had. Halo Lux was eating itself alive, and the people who once feared Nathan were finally speaking. The media didn't even need a villain anymore. Nathan's arrogance had made him the perfect one. Later that afternoon, I got a LinkedIn DM from a woman who used to run events at a tech conference where Halo Lux was a major sponsor. Guess who just canceled their annual keynote slot? And guess who I'd love to replace them with? She didn't need to say his name, and I didn't need to say mine. Meanwhile, Nathan was spiraling. I know because 2 former co-workers who were still at Halo Lux messaged me anonymously from burner accounts. One said he stormed into an all-hands meeting, red in the face, ranting about loyalty and media hit jobs. Another said he tried to blame the platform instability on external vendors and bad hires. But no one bought it. You can't lead with ego and hide behind excuses. Not when your biggest clients are walking and your own staff are watching your empire sink from the inside. I'll never forget the clip. It was supposed to be Nathan's rebound moment, a keynote at a smaller event, still on the calendar from before things started unraveling. The video got posted on Twitter by a random attendee. He walked on stage, less polished than usual. No signature smugness. The usual applause was tepid. He started speaking, trying to sound confident. Words like pivot, resilience, adaptability. But then someone asked about the Vermilion account. Live mic full room. "Is it true they dropped you because of system instability?" Nathan froze for half a second, then launched into a mess of buzzwords and half-truths. But the silence in that room? It was louder than his voice. And someone caught it all on camera. The clip went viral. Not millions of views, but enough to circulate through the exact circles he used to dominate. Enough to show cracks in the armor. The king had no clothes. Back at Aurora, we didn't celebrate. Not outwardly. Clara just stood by the window, watching traffic roll by, arms crossed. "You did what you came here to do?" she said. "Not yet," I replied. She glanced at me. "You're still angry." "No," I said. "I'm just awake." I thought about how far we'd come. 6 months ago, I was being humiliated in front of 500 people, blindsided, disposable. Now, Nathan was watching everything he built crumble, publicly, painfully, while the very people he used to dismiss were thriving without him. But the most poetic part? I never once raised my voice. I didn't take him down with fury or fire. I took him down with clarity, with competence, with quiet precision. He taught me the cost of misplaced trust. I taught him the cost of underestimating silence. That night, I got an email, anonymous address, but I knew the tone. One line, "We both know this isn't over. I'm not done." Nathan, clinging to the idea that he still had power, that he could claw his way back. He didn't realize that the next move wouldn't come from me. It would come from the board, and they were already sharpening their knives. When you've waited long enough for something, it doesn't always feel like victory when it arrives. Sometimes it just feels quiet, like the ending of a storm. That's how I felt when the news broke. Halo Lux board votes to remove CEO Nathan Kellerman amidst mounting pressure and client exodus. It was on every tech blog within the hour. VenturePulse, Founders Weekly, even the industry newsletter that once named him Startup Visionary of the Year had quietly updated their archive with a new editor's note. Correction, this article does not reflect the current leadership status at Halo Lux. That was their polite way of saying, he's done. I wish I could say I jumped up and down, that I yelled or laughed or toasted a bottle of champagne. But the truth? I just sat at my desk and exhaled. One long, full breath I didn't know I'd been holding since the night of the gala. Clara walked into my office 30 minutes later, phone in hand. He's out, she said. I nodded. I know. The board's doing damage control. There's an interim CEO. Most of the execs are either already gone or jumping ship this week. Then she looked at me. Long calculated. They want to talk to you. Me? You're the only person who still understands how to clean up that mess. It was surreal. After everything, the betrayal, the humiliation, the strategic war, I was now being invited to consult on how to dismantle the company I'd once helped build. A back-channel email came the next day. Short, formal, no emotion. We'd like to discuss a potential short-term advisory engagement as Halo Lux transitions to new leadership. Your institutional knowledge would be invaluable during this period. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't say yes right away. Part of me hated the idea of going back, even if only as a mercenary, even if I held all the cards. But another part of me, the strategist, recognized what this really was. It wasn't an apology. It was an admission. They finally understood who the real value had been all along. I took the meeting. Neutral location. Private room in a hotel in Midtown. The board rep was calm, professional, a guy named Madsen. He didn't pretend we were old friends. We made mistakes, he said plainly. We backed ego over execution. That's on us. You're not wrong, I said. We're not asking you to fix what's broken. We're asking you to help us salvage what's left. I didn't agree. Not right away. I laid out terms. Ridiculous ones. Double my original compensation. Full creative control. Zero contact with Nathan. And a clause allowing me to walk away, no questions asked, if I didn't like the direction. They signed it in 48 hours. Back at Aurora, Clara didn't flinch when I told her. You sure you want to go back in? I'm not going back, I said. I'm walking through the ashes. Different thing. She leaned back, arms crossed. You want my opinion? Always. Finish it. But make sure when you walk out, you don't leave any part of yourself behind this time. So I went in. Not as a savior. Not as an ex-employee. I went in as a ghost with keys to every locked door. I walked through the boardroom like a surgeon entering an operating theater full of people who once called me disposable. Now they handed me the scalpel. Over the next 3 weeks, I rewired what I could, documented what was salvageable, and set up transition plans for the rest. I didn't stay for lunches. I didn't engage in small talk. I made eye contact when needed and silence when it wasn't. And when Nathan's name came up, I offered one answer. He's your past. I'm here for the future. On my last day there, I stopped by my old office. Empty now, echoing. The same corner where I used to eat lunch over spreadsheets. Where I once worked late just to impress a man who called me excess in front of half the city. I stood in the doorway for a moment. Then I walked out. No goodbye, no revenge speech. Just the soft click of my footsteps disappearing down the hall. That night, back at Aurora, Clara handed me a small envelope. Inside was a single card. Handwritten. You didn't destroy him. You revealed him. That's the difference between a villain and a shadow. When HR gave me the ultimatum 6 months ago, take a 64% pay cut or walk out today, they thought I only had 2 choices. Stay and shrink, or leave and disappear. What they didn't know, what they never imagined, was that I'd take option C, burn it all down, No, I rebuilt. Better, quieter, smarter. And when the fire finally caught up to them, I was already walking out the front door of my new office, sunlight on my face, vermilion in the bag, and every inch of my dignity intact. I didn't plan to become a symbol. I didn't plan to start a company revolution or steal a king's crown while he watched from the shadows. I just wanted my life back. But somewhere along the way, I realized I didn't want the old life. The one where I was constantly proving my worth to people too blind to see it. I wanted this life. The one I built by walking through betrayal and coming out the other side without bitterness in my chest. Just clarity. Aurora's office felt warmer now. Not in temperature, but in energy. The team trusted each other. Meetings weren't about politics or positioning. They were about progress. And Clara? She'd become something more than a boss. She was proof that leadership didn't have to come wrapped in narcissism and fear. She never asked for loyalty. She earned it. I still get messages sometimes. Old colleagues. People I barely spoke to at Halo Lux. They tell me Nathan's gone dark. That he's exploring new ventures, whatever that means. That he's still trying to spin the story like he walked away on his own terms. I don't reply, because I'm not interested in narrating his fall. I'm only interested in living my rise. A few weeks ago, I got an invite to speak at a tech summit in San Diego. Topic: Building with Integrity After Leadership Trauma. I almost said no, but then I remembered that night at the Gala. Standing alone under that chandelier. The silence after the applause. The hollow in my chest when everyone looked at me and saw a man defeated. I went. And when I stepped on stage, the applause was real. No backstabbing. No public shaming. Just people ready to hear how I survived it all and rebuilt from the ashes. I ended my talk with this. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can do is stay quiet. Not because you're scared, but because you're patient. Because you know when the moment comes, the right people will hear you. And when they do, you won't need to scream. As I walked off stage, someone from the audience handed me a note. No name, just 6 words. You took option C. So did I. I smiled. Because that's why I told this story. Not for Nathan. Not for the board. Not for the revenge. But for the people like me. The ones who were told to shrink. The ones who were silenced in boardrooms, blindsided in public, buried under fake smiles and toxic grins. The ones who were supposed to disappear. We don't disappear. We build. We rise. We take option C. And we never look back.